The purpose of Module 3 is to introduce the three processes that were developed by project type. There are three basic categories of road projects that are subject to the merger process: new location, widening and other improvement projects, and bridge replacement. A separate process has been set up for each type of project. Process 1 is used for new location projects. New location projects are those that include a road or road segment with an area other than an existing road corridor. An example would be a proposed bypass that is on a new location and doesn't just upgrade an existing road. Process 2 includes those projects that widen or upgrade existing road corridors. Development of a new interstate highway that involved just the upgrading of an existing road could be a Process 2 project. Process 3 is used for bridge replacement projects. Process 3 was developed to address projects that involve the replacement of an existing bridge. These projects are usually processed as categorical exclusions. A separate process has been developed for each type of project and is designed to capture all of the essential steps to allow the project to be developed in an efficient and effective manner. The processes ensure that the resource agencies have an opportunity to review and provide input. Each process is comprehensive and moves from initiation of project study to project completion. The goal of each process is to deliver quality projects that fully protect the human and natural environment. All three processes have similar components and are designed to merge project development with regulatory requirements and environmental protection. These components include project teams, concurrence points, and a step-by-step progression. The addition of strategic agency coordination steps at key points in the processes was one of the most significant elements added by merger. This addition allows for a smoother flow of project development and essentially eliminates the need for redo loops. Process 1 for new location projects represents the full merger process. The need to identify and select a corridor within which the road will be located is the most defining aspect of Process 1. New location projects, by their very nature, quite often have the greatest impacts to the natural environment, require the most documentation, require the greatest consideration of alternatives, and require the most coordination. As you would expect, Process 1 is the most detailed and time-consuming of the three processes. Here is an example of a Process 1 project. This is a section of the Wilmington Bypass project in Brunswick and New Hanover counties. With Process 2, the corridor is typically already known. Therefore, selection of alternatives starts with how to widen the road: left, right, or a combination of the two. Widening projects usually have the potential to impact the human environment to the greatest degree because of the residential and business development along the existing alignment. Identification of the logical termini or endpoints of the project can also be an issue with Process 2. If a new location segment is added as an alternative to a project already in the widening process, Process 2, then the project should be considered for Process 1. Here is an example of a Process 2 project. This is a picture from the proposed widening of NC 268 in Wilkes County. Process 3 is used for bridge projects to be replaced on site and require a categorical exclusion. This process is not used for programmatic CEs. This slide shows some of the issues and concerns usually associated with bridge replacement projects relative to alternative selection and minimization efforts of impacts by steepening slopes, using top-down construction, or using an off-site detour. With proper coordination and attention to these specific concerns and issues, Process 3 projects are usually the easiest to get approved and move to construction. Process 3 is rarely used, as bridge replacement projects, due to their relatively smaller study areas, typically do not have a multitude of resources being impacted. Thus, rather than being moved into the merger process, issues can typically be resolved with specific coordination with the individual resources agencies. Here is an example of a Process 3 project. This is a future bridge replacement project in Rutherford County. One thing to note is that after the initial project team meeting, the type of process to be used could change if the anticipated impacts warrant, or if there is a concern regarding the purpose and need for the project. These are the concurrence points for Process 1 to be used for new location projects. Each of these concurrence points will be discussed in detail later in the course. Concurrence point 1 is to determine the purpose and need for the project and define the study area. Concurrence point 2 is to decide on which corridors will be studied in detail. Concurrence point 2a is the decision on where bridges should be located and how long they should be. Bridge location decisions at this point are natural resource based. This is also a decision on how the road will be aligned within each corridor. Concurrence point 3 is a decision on the least environmentally damaging, practicable alternative, or LEDPA, and the selection of the corridor which will be developed further in final design. Concurrence point 4a is the meeting where additional avoidance and minimization of impacts to the human and natural environment is performed. Concurrence point 4b is the review of the 30% hydraulic design plans. And finally, concurrence point 4c is the review of the permit drawings. These are the concurrence points for Process 2 to be used for widening and other improvement projects, which are slightly different than Process 1. Each of these concurrence points will be discussed in detail later in the course. Concurrence point 1 is to determine the purpose and need for the project. Concurrence point 2 is the decision on the alignment alternatives that should be evaluated within the widening corridor. Concurrence point 2a is the decision on where bridges should be located and how long they should be. Concurrence point 2a also is the decision on the final alternatives to be studied in the NEPA document. Concurrence point 3 is the decision on the selection of the alignment of the road within the widening corridor and the identification of the least environmentally damaging practicable alternative, or LEDPA. Concurrence point 4a is the meeting where additional avoidance and minimization of impacts to the human and natural environment is performed. Concurrence point 4b is the review of the 30% hydraulic design plans. And finally, concurrence point 4c is the review of the permit drawings. These are the concurrence points for Process 3 to be used for bridge replacement projects. Process 3 is an abbreviated process with only some of the previously discussed concurrence points, and as you can see, some of the concurrence points are combined. Concurrence point 2a is the meeting to determine options to evaluate in detail and if a bridge or culvert should be used. Concurrence point 3 and 4a is the meeting where the decision on the selection of the preferred alternative and the identification of the LEDPA is made. In addition, concurrence point 4a is determined at the meeting where the additional avoidance and minimization of impacts to the human and natural environment is performed. And finally, concurrence point 4c is the review of the permit drawings.